So I interviewed you probably a couple years ago during the last political elections, and we were talking about politics. And since then, I had several meditations that said I needed to learn more about shamanism. And so over the last year and a half, I've been studying shamanism with Michael Harner's Institute and had the privilege of seeing him live, which was
Mm,
unbelievable because he's not very
great.
often out.
Yeah.
So I got into shamanism based on just a meditation, and people kept on, I'd have past life readings, and people would say, "Oh, you're a shaman." I'm like, what is that? What are you talking about? And they're like, "Well, you're a shaman. You need to explore this." And I thought, okay, I'll just take a class because I'm just really curious. How did you get involved in shamanism? What were the answers you were seeking, or how did
Mm.
you get involved?
Well, it's a little bit of a long answer because I think that I was born, as most people are, with some destiny to be
Mm-hmm.
doing this work. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I was little, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, right in the city. But I had such a sense of the preciousness of life. I mean, I looked around me, I couldn't believe the colors. As everybody know, there are trees in Brooklyn and there are some parks, and I couldn't believe the colors and the bird sounds and trees. And so, I just really had this unbelievable connection, not just with nature, but I met the hidden folk, and different spirits would come to me, and I would sing to the moon every night, and I would sing to this tree every day when I came back from school. And then when I was 7, I was hit by lightning. And although I don't have a memory of it being a classic near-death experience,
Oh, you were literally
um,
hit by lightning.
I
Okay.
was literally, yeah, yeah.
Jeez.
And but my consciousness was definitely changed after that. I was more sensitive to the spiritual realms. And then I had two other near death experiences later on in life that were more of the classic near death experiences that you read about. But also, I grew up in the 60s when people were really looking for a different way of life, trying to move away from the norm. And, I experimented with mind altering substances. I did the whole 60s thing and moved to the Haight Ashbury. And so there was always, I was born with this um, spiritual drive. Everything for
Hmm.
me was about expansion and opening up to spirit realms and seeing and perceiving life more than what we perceive in the tangible, and really respecting all of life, loving people, loving everything that was alive. But I didn't have anything formal. It was just I had spiritual experiences, lots
Hmm.
of spiritual experiences, wonderful spiritual experiences, but I didn't know what to do with any of them. I didn't have a practice.
Hmm.
And so I got my master's in counseling psychology at a private graduate school in California, and I was working two jobs to put myself through school, and I was taking too many classes. I was completely overwhelmed. And somebody came into the office one day and said some anthropologist is coming out from Connecticut. It was Michael Harner, who um, uh, wrote a book, and he brought shamanism to the West at a very early time when nobody was into shamanism. And it was a weekend workshop, and he taught us how to meet up with a helping, compassionate spirit. And I met up with this little being, and he stood there in my what's called a shamanic journey and started answering all my questions for me. And that was on Halloween of 1980. And I was just hooked. It was like all of a sudden I had a practice, something I can do instead of just having um, you know, uh, experiences out of the blue and not knowing what to do with them,
Mm.
and not knowing how to receive my own personal guidance in life to help me improve my life and to also help improve the planet. So it's been a lifelong path for me. It
Mm.
wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to take this workshop. It was my whole life was has been, I'm 62 now, my whole life has been a spiritual adventure of opening to the spiritual realms, and it was really destiny that brought me to that workshop. I was just going for 2 easy units. I didn't even know if the workshop had gone. Nobody told me I did.
Oh my
In my
goodness.
school, they said, "Oh, you could get 2 easy units if you sign up for this workshop." So it was kind of like, the universe picked me up
Wow.
and put me down in the right place. And my whole shamanic life has been like that.
Mm.
I took the workshop, and one thing led to another, and I started seeing clients, and I started teaching workshops around the world, and it's just been that particular part of my life, not all parts of my life, but that particular part of my life has been effortless, where the universe constantly provides, some place for me to be that brings me to the next level of my work.
Hmm. Okay, so give me an example of that journey, like the different, are they pivot points or just like steps along? Uh, I'm imagining you just walking up steps to higher and higher levels, or what? How would you describe
Yeah,
those points?
yeah. Shamanism is a life path, and there are two different aspects. I'm sure there's more. I'm oversimplifying
Mm-hmm.
here. The word shaman itself comes from the Tungus tribe in Siberia, and it
Mm-hmm.
means one who sees in the dark or healer. And
Mm-hmm.
so, the typical definition of a shaman is a person who goes into an altered state of consciousness, typically through some form of percussion. They're mostly the drum, but bells and rattles and bowls and sticks and didgeridoos can be used to move into that altered state. And once the shaman goes into that altered state, a veil is open between the tangible realms and the invisible realms that are always here with us. And the shaman actually steps through into the invisible realms, and there's a whole host of what are called helping and compassionate spirits who just their whole purpose is to give guidance to us as humans of how to heal ourselves, how to evolve. And so in my own life, it started for me as I journeyed, it started with my own self healing. I had a lot of issues that I felt I really couldn't heal in my own life. I dealt a lot with depression. Depression was a big story for me in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I met up with a helping spirit who taught me how to enjoy life and how, when I moved into depressive states of consciousness, how to ride those out. And,
Mm.
he really helped me step by step. And then over time, after a couple of years of journeying, I was a licensed psychotherapist, and so I started introducing the practice of teaching other people how to journey and started teaching workshops in the Bay Area, teaching people how to journey. And then my work really moved to the classical role of the shaman as
Mm.
healer, performing soul retrievals, bringing back lost parts of ourselves that got lost through trauma or extracting intrusive energies. And then my path kind of moved to how do we use shamanic methods not just to improve our own life, but how do we use shamanic methods to heal the planet right now? And so when I said there are two parts to shamanism, oversimplifying it, there's the journey, the shamanic journey, which a shaman takes outside of time for direct revelation to get guidance. But shamanism is also a way of life. And so everybody in a shamanic culture was brought up in a particular way to honor and respect nature, each other, and everything that's alive in the web of life. And so when you put those, if you just journey and keep getting guidance, um, that's not enough to really evolve, not only for yourself, but to help the planet move through so many of the challenges that everybody's experiencing today.
Okay, so you move from kind of an individual look at self-healing and what can I do for my depression to then helping others to now it's kind of almost like you see kind of a telescoping lens where you're getting broader and broader in terms of the steps that you're taking along your path of shamanism to now healing the world is the lens. Is
Yeah.
that the right lens?
Yeah, absolutely. And, we're always on a path of self healing. So
Mm-hmm.
the universe always provides um, situations for us to go through these initiation experiences, which I write about in Walking in Light because it's
Mm-hmm.
really a huge topic,
Mm-hmm.
especially for all of us right now who are going through so much change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where the universe basically, in an initiation, what the universe is trying to do, it's trying to sculpt away at the ego so that the spirit can come through. So it's almost like the universe comes in and polishes you like a stone that can make it very bright in the world. And so every time we go through a change in life, whether it's changing a job or um, changing relationships or a health issue or even moving, and then those big, more cataclysmic changes that come in where maybe we lost a home through an environmental event or, a big
Mm-hmm.
health, life-threatening health issue is presented to us. These are all, from a shamanic point of view, what are called initiations, where we go through a change, we go through a transition. It's not an end. There's no end. It feels like it is sometimes. Oh, I don't know how I'm going to get through this.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, what's happening is we're sculpted into new beings, new evolutions of ourself. And so one of the things about being on a shamanic path, if you meet an indigenous shaman,
Mm-hmm.
people bring over indigenous shamans to work with Westerners, and they walk into a room and they see all these Westerners sitting there, and they go, "Why are all these people interested in shamanism?" Because it's not an easy path. When
Mm-hmm.
when somebody takes on the role of being a shaman, it is a life filled with huge initiations to keep um, allowing spirit to come through more. But in my feeling is everybody right now in the time that we're living in, we're going through big initiations.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I really try to teach in all of my workshops and all of my books is that there's a difference between being a shaman and practicing shamanism. So,
Hmm. Okay.
being a shaman is a destiny. It's something you're chosen. It's not like, ooh, being a shaman sounds like a good idea. I sometimes get letters from people and go, I'd like to become a shaman. It looks like a good profession. And
Oh, I see.
uh, yeah, from a shamanic point of view, it's like it's more of a destiny thing where the spirits pick you. And again, from an indigenous perspective, no indigenous shaman wants to be a shaman because life is hard.
Mm-hmm.
All these initiations are set up, but but shamanism also has practices. It doesn't mean you're going to become a shaman, but everybody can learn how to perform a shamanic journey, to meet up with helping spirits, to look at how you can improve the quality of your own life and to heal yourself and to be a healing force in your community and in your family and in your workplace. Everybody should be learning shamanic practices to live a life of honor and respect and to open up beyond what we're seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling in the tangible realms to
Mm-hmm.
what is going on in the invisible realms,
Mm-hmm.
meaning the trees are alive. When you're taking a walk in nature and you're thinking about something, a decision you have to make, and all of a sudden the clouds part and the sun comes
Right.
down. Everything is alive and everything speaks to us. And so in shamanic cultures, people were brought up to be able to recognize that everything was alive and to communicate with what we call everything that lives in the web of life
Mm-hmm.
and to live from a place of honor and respect. And so that's not becoming a shaman. Learning how to journey and learning a shamanic way of life is something that is very important to all of us, and there's a huge resurgence. It's unbelievable from when I started practicing shamanism in 1980
Mm-hmm.
to the resurgence right now. And it is time for us to own our power and to find methods of direct revelation, to own our own authority and to stop giving our authority away to other people, to really be able to tap into our own guidance, our own personal spiritual guidance, and to walk on this earth in a way that honors and respects the elements and the spirit that lives in all things.
But really, that when you're describing the difference between being a shaman and practicing shamanism is, in your case, it was your destiny. It's not something that you thought out. I mean, it was just this is the way that you were. Is
Right.
that right? So that's not. I mean, that's not. I'm actually practicing shamanism. I don't know if I have any desire, and I don't know if even if I did have the desire, if it comes. It's like I think you probably would
Right.
know at this point if you were or
Well,
not. Don't you think?
yeah, I think what happens is the spirits lead you.
Hmm.
So when people ask me, do you think I'm a shaman? I go, you're going to know because the helping spirits are going to set up life initiations for you and situations in your life
Mm.
where you're just going to be led. It's not sitting down and wondering, I wonder if it's my destiny to be a shaman. It actually has a life of its own where the helping spirits really start to lead you in a particular direction and show you how to heal other people and to work in a healing capacity, and then noticing, it's one thing to do healing work, it's another thing to really observe the results of your work. Shamanism dates back at least 100,000 years, and it's always been a result-oriented practice because if the shaman couldn't find food sources and if the shaman couldn't heal the people, their communities died.
Mm.
And so it's always been passed down as a result-oriented practice. And
Mm.
so what I train my students who sign up for workshops on shamanic healing is watch the results that you get.
Mm.
Are your clients getting better from the work that you do? So you're led
Mm.
along the way, and
Right.
you know,
You'll
and
get reinforcement. But I
you,
wonder whether you can
yeah,
ignore that too. I mean, I went to a workshop and we were in Mount Shasta, which was beautiful.
mm,
And someone asked me to do a healing. And I'm kind of like, oh, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to
right,
happen. So I go and do this thing, and then stuff that I don't even believe in starts popping up in this non ordinary reality where I'm asked to go and take a Lemurian stone and perform this thing and I don't even know what the ailment is, right? The way that they
right,
set up this thing is I don't even know what the person's problem is. They just sit
right,
there and then you just follow the advice of whatever you're hearing. And so I'm like
right.
touching this person's neck, I'm rolling it around, I'm imagining the Lemurian stone. I'm like, I don't know what is going on, but I'm doing it.
Perfect.
I'm suspending all disbelief. And then
Yeah,
afterwards, you don't even talk because they go to the next person. So this person is giving me healing. So I have no idea what happened. Did it
right.
work? Did it not work? And he said, "Oh, I've actually had this chronic neck problem where I couldn't move my head more than 5 degrees, and you just
Hmm.
healed my neck, and I'm rotating around, and I'm in shock because I'm thinking, now what the
What
hell
did
I'm
I
doing?
do?
I'm just like
Yeah.
channel, just you know,
Yeah,
following.
well, what you're saying I think is so incredibly important, and I feel there's the positives of the resurgence of shamanism today. So many people interested in, and there's huge shadow side of so many people
Hmm.
interested in shamanism. And one of the shadow sides is that the culture that we live in, the modern day culture that we live in, everybody's into methods. We're obsessed with methods.
Hmm.
And show me how to do this particular healing.
Hmm.
Wanting a teacher like myself or Michael Harner or somebody else to show you, teach you these methods. And so what's happening in the modern day world, and I write a lot about this because this is a real trigger for me, this is a big issue for me,
Hmm.
is that in a modern day world, we're creating a factory of shamanic practitioners who are learning the steps of a method, but there's no more power to it.
Hmm.
And so my fear is that there's the possibility that the practice of shamanism could die out because healing is not about method, step one, step two, shake the rattle 4 times like this and turn in this direction and have your clients sit up and blow into them. That's not what shamanism is about. If you look at different shamanic cultures around the world, you never see two shamans working the same, ever. So what I'm doing now in my healing workshops is exactly what you described of what you did in Mount Shasta. Is one of the first journeys I have people do who already know how to journey, so they're already experienced journeyers, is instead, before I teach them how I work and any method that I use, I have them pair up with somebody and to ask their helping spirits to perform a healing on them with no method that they've ever heard of before or learned about. And that's really true shamanism, because shamans are just a vessel. We call it a hollow bone in the ethnographic literature. The shaman is called a hollow bone or an empty reed, where the shaman moves his or her personality and ego out of the way, becomes this vessel, this empty vessel, where the power of the helping spirits who live in the non-ordinary realms can come through and perform miraculous healings. And like I said, you'll never see two shamans working the same, but in our culture, people want to sign up for workshops where
I see.
instead of opening up and being a vessel, they're learning steps.
I see. I see.
And that's not what shamanism is.
Right. Well, one is way more empowering to know that you don't have to know. Feels in some way more releasing. This is recalling interview, not an interview, during the Michael Harner workshop in San Francisco. It's just such a privilege to have him there because he doesn't come out very often. And we had a big circle where we were all asking questions, and someone raised their hand, and I said, I found this rattle, and they go into a very long story about the rattle, and they said, I'm wondering if you should tell me what I should do with the rattle. And he'd say, I think you need to journey on it. Okay, thank you. Okay, then the next person came up and said, I have a question, I'm wondering about this in my life and something else and la la la. And like, what do you think I should do, Michael? And he said, I think you should journey on it. After like 6 of these question and answers, I'm like, I think you should just journey on it. Like, don't ask these questions anymore, because it is about direct revelation, right? That's the whole purpose.
It's all about direct revelation. And one of the things I find in teaching shamanism today, one of the challenges that I find is that because of the society that we grew up in, our conditioning, it's very difficult for us to take time and reflect. Self-reflection is very difficult. So I teach these huge teleconferencing courses, and I just love them because I have people all over the world, and we can go really, really deep together. I've been blown away at how deep we go. But there are some people who never did any kind of spiritual work, and so instead of, when an answer comes, instead of either going back into a journey or going out into nature and just sitting for a while and going, what could this possibly mean? What could this answer possibly mean? What could this rattle possibly be showing to me? It's immediately, within 15 seconds, putting out a question over the internet, this is what I was shown in my journey, who can interpret it for me. And it's basically that's what we're taught in our culture. It's a social conditioning thing of, when you have a question, you ask for another authority figure in this world to answer it for you. And shamanism is really a practice of direct revelation. So it's really difficult, and everybody who teaches shamanic journeying, just like Michael Harner, we're all saying journey on it, journey on it, journey on it, journey on it, and people go, don't tell me to journey on it, give me something here. And one of my students actually made T-shirts once, journey on it. But it's interesting because in a shamanic culture, people were more brought up in a self-reflective
Mm.
way, go sit by the lake or go sit by
Mm-hmm.
the river for 3 days and reflect on what you received in a vision quest. In our culture, we're not. It's not something that we're taught.
Right.
We didn't learn it growing up. It's not, and that's what people really need right now is how do we stop turning to outside authority figures, and how do we start to turn within,
Mm.
whether it's to the helping spirits or to our own intuition, because we were born with all the information that we need. And so, one of the challenges that we're all facing in our time is not trusting ourselves and
Mm.
not trusting our own guidance and our
Right.
own answers. And somebody out there knows more than I do. And that's not true. And we could really turn the planet around if people understood their own personal power, and that we all came in here with different pieces of the puzzle, and that it is our destiny, it's everybody's destiny to understand how creative we all are and how intuitive we all are, and all the information that we were born with, and to start to share it
Mm-hmm.
instead of, I like to look at it as a feminine horizontal model. We're still living in that patriarchal vertical model.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that where the change is going to come, the positive transformation and change is going to come on the planet, is when we start to honor our own power, our own information, our own reliance on ourselves, and move more into that horizontal model.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show. Would love your support in any way by giving me comments below, or to subscribe to the show, or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.